I'm going to let Joe introduce himself. He suggested he wanted to do that. This is one of our very own Captain Joe Pritchard. Welcome, Joe, and thank you in advance. He doesn't need the mic. Okay, I'll take that.
People that don't know me, my name's Joe Pritchard. I'd like to give you a little bit of a background about me before we get down to the nitty-gritty. So I will start off when I was about 4. I swallowed a small microphone out of a stuffed animal. They never thought the batteries would last this long. So, with that out of the way, my name is Joe Pritchard, Captain Joe Pritchard. I am 69 years old. Out of them 69 years, I've been a licensed charter captain for 40 years. I hold a U.S. Coast Guard Merchant Marine Officer's license. I chartered up on the Great Lakes for a little over 20 years. I also chartered out of Cape May, New Jersey for over 20 years. I fished the big pond, out at the canyons, tuna, marlin. I've deep dropped up there, so on and so forth. My presentation tonight is on basic deep dropping and basic sword fishing. That is my forte that I really like to do. So with further ado, here we go. I fish out here. I've caught a couple swordfish. I've deep bottom drop. I brought some different things with me to show and pass around. Anybody here that does deep drop? Don't all jump up at once. Okay. Basically, if you're going to deep drop, you're going to have to get off the wallet a little bit. I mean, you know, it's not just like a bobber and a sinker. You basically want electric reel. There's a lot of different electric reels out there. There's a lot of different companies making them. I try to do things the simplest and easiest way. Anything I tell you tonight is my way. Not necessarily the right way, but I try to do it simple and easy. I started off with Danacoms. I'm not a big fan of Tanacom reels. I had a lot of problems with them. So when I started deep dropping down here, I went to a Banex reel. Okay, this is a Banex 1500. They make 1,000. The 1,000, as far as I'm concerned, the Banex reel is a lot better reel than the Tanacom. I think it's better than the Beastmaster. But like I said, everybody has their own preference. Everybody knows how much they can spend. You can buy a 1,000 Banex reel for about $5.99. It's very compatible to a Tanacom 1000. And I personally, I mean, they've come a long way over the years, but I still like these. So this is my choice, is all it is. When you're deep dropping, you're going to have to use electric reel. You're fishing anywhere from 2 to 1,000 feet. You're using anywhere from 3 or 4 pounds of lead to 10 or 12 pounds of lead. There's different rigs that you can use. If anybody has any questions while I'm up here talking, feel free to ask. I brought a couple rigs to give you an idea. We can pass these around. Basically, you're bottom fishing, deep dropping. You're not fishing a game fish. You're fishing a meat fish. You know, you're fishing, they eat good. They are fun to catch. And, but you're not sport fishing. You don't have to get real fussy with the tackle. Heavy tackle is for the equipment more than catching the fish. For example, let me get it untangled here. This is a typical deep drop rig. I make most of my own rigs. This is a 4-hook rig, nothing fancy. It's on 200-pound test line. Guess I should have took all these apart before I started. This is same thing, a little bit fancier. Your weight goes on the bottom, this goes to your main line. You're up and down. You want to fish vertical, as straight up and down as you can when you're bottom fishing. You get out here, not real good, because these fish live on the bottom. They're not going to chase a bait like a marlin or a dolphin or something like that. If it's not in their range, they're going to let it go by. Can anybody tell me the difference between this rig and this plain simple rig, other than the size?
They both have glow in the dark?
Yes, I strongly prefer glow in the dark. The difference between these two rigs, this one really catches fish. And this one really catches fish. The difference between them, this one catches many fish as this one, but this one catches the fisherman. This is about an $18 rig. This is a $39 rig. That's the difference between them. I go simple, I go fancy. We can pass them around, start one way or the other. You can look and see. This one is on 400-pound test line. The reason I made it on 400-pound test, because I had it. You know, they're, like I said, they're not a fish, they're not a real aggressive fish. Everybody uses squid. That's the most common. You don't want to cut it much bigger than a matchbook size, like a double matchbook. Some guys are putting whole squids on, especially golden tilefish. When they come up, they take the squid head off, that's all they're going to eat. You'll come up with just the bodies. So if you cut the bodies up, you'll get bites on the bodies, you know. So I like to use fish and bait, or fish and squid. I generally run a 4-hook rig. I put squid, I put a piece of fish, I put squid and a piece of fish. All my yellow wedge groupers that I've caught out here have all been always on fish. I have never caught a yellow wedge grouper on a piece of squid. Now, I don't know if it's coincidence or what, but that's what I do. Another thing everybody says too is, no lights, no bites. You want to put lights on it. I put a flashing light, something like that, right on the top of my snap swivel. You put it down. Like I said, you're vertically fishing. Some guys put lights on every hook. I don't believe you need that. To give you an idea, here's a little bit. Now I'm not the best artist, but I drew some pictures. This is a double. And I'll pass this around. As I pass this around, like I said, anybody have any questions, yell out. This is basically pretty self-explanatory. This here, on this one here, where you can see the line going here and going down, just think of this line not being here, and this is a deep drop rig. And this line would be a swordfish rig. You know, I just doubled it up that way. So we'll pass that around to whoever. As far as reels, like I said, you know, the Tanacoms are a great reel. I found out here too, I'll give you a couple little tips. If you're going to fish for yellow wedge grouper, you don't want to fish over 600 feet. And you don't want to fish under 5. So that really narrows it down. But all my yellow, and I had an old timer tell me this many years ago, and it's worked. I've never caught a golden wedge, a yellow wedge grouper. And you'll catch tilefish mixing right with them. You won't catch a lot of tilefish in that 500-600 feet, especially your golden tiles. But the ones you catch will be nice tilefish. They're going to be 18, 20, 25 pounds. I don't know why, but they are. They're mixed in there. You're also going to catch snowy grouper that way in that area, you know, around structure. A lot of people don't realize yellow wedge grouper are a mud fish. They're not a structure fish. You know, they're like the tilefish. They live in the mud. They burrow. They're, you know, so when you go out there and fish, the first time I fished out here is I went out 600 feet, set my line down, no waypoints, no numbers, no nothing. And I started drifting. And I got a bite. And I missed it. And I got another bite. And I missed it. And I got another bite. And I caught him. And it was about a 20-pound yellow wedge grouper. I was 555 feet of water at the time. So I ran back and made another drift. And that's the area. And I've caught them from, say, off of Push Button Hill down in Stewart, all the way up past almost to Sebastian in that area. You know, now most of your golden tiles, I don't see a lot of blue tile fish around here, or grays that they call them. But your golden tiles, which they've really shortened the season on, you're going to get a lot of them out in 750, 800 feet of water. Okay, use guys that fish and use rent the boats. There's quite a few of you, I know, in here that get the boats from the different clubs and stuff you're members of, and you can use their boats. There's a couple things you could do to deep drop, which is not going to cost. One, you need electric reel. Two, you need a battery. Nowadays, they're coming out with a lot of small batteries. But for example, you can buy a 12-volt, 60 all battery lithium with a charger for about $200. And you can carry that on the boat where you can carry it off. That 12-volt lithium battery weighs 9.8 ounces, or 9.8 pounds. It's not, my lunch is heavier than that. Yeah. You know, I mean, and you know, with a couple alligator clips, you're good to go. Also, another item that these guys that are fishing in the boats, you can buy one of these. I'll pass this around also. It drops in the rod holder and it swivels. I mean, when you're bottom fishing, you're not really holding the rod. You're fishing out of the gunnel of the boat. You're fishing out of a rod holder. Like I said, it's not sport fishing. You can buy one of these. These are around 39 bucks. They fall in and they pivot. They'll pivot. So when you have the rod in a rod holder, you can pivot it without having a lot of problems. The only thing you got to remember to take it back out, because if not, the next guy that rents the boat is going to get a $49 prize. So, you know, just to help you out, like I said, that would be a good way to, you know, buy your battery. You can carry it on. This way you can move it around. Alligator clips. I suggest a long cord. This way you got some mobility if you do have to change the rod from one rod holder to the other. A bent butt. These are all adjustable butts. But a bent butt would be preferably, so when it's in the rod holder, she's over there, like this. When you should get a bite, who wants to hold this? Don't know, speak up once again. Here, hold that. Hang on to that, baby. Okay, I'm gonna let the all right, lock it up in here. Hold it real high. When you're out there bottom fishing, everybody's waiting for that rod to go.
Nope.
The bite is like this. That's all it is. If you're deep dropping or sword fishing, if you're not watching the tip of the rod, you're not fishing. It's that simple. I mean, you could turn and get a sandwich or a drink, and that rod will go. You never know the bite. The bites are subtle. They're very subtle. You're also fishing. On an average, you're fishing 600 feet of water for style fish. You're going to have 750 to 800 feet of line out, depending on the current. Okay? What you do to keep it vertical, the current down here runs predominantly north, out in the deeper water. What you want to do is you want to head the boat south. You want to stay between 180 and 200 degrees. So you're turning the boat back and forth, nice and easy. And you're using your motors. Bump the motors in gear. Your line's down out of the side of the boat. As you pull forward, that line's going to go back. I usually let it go back to about 40 degrees, 45 degrees. Then I take it out of gear, and you will drift back slowly. As you drift back, you'll see your line come down. Be straight, and then when it gets about 40 degrees that way, you want to bump it back forward again. So if the current's running at, say, 3 miles an hour, you want to keep bumping the boat. When that line is straight down, you're most vertical. You also want to be on the bottom. Like I said, these fish are on the bottom. You want that lead literally bouncing off the bottom. When you're doing this, if you watch the rod, you'll get notice. You'll get a rhythm in the rod. Hit the bottom, hit the bottom, hit the bottom. You're not hitting the bottom. Let out a little more line. Or pull up a little faster so your line comes back. Okay? And you hit the bottom, hit the bottom. That was a bite. Hit the bottom. I use all circle hooks. I use 8 and 10-0 circle hooks. Big circle hooks. You generally don't miss with a circle hook. The J hook, you can catch fish and get a lot of bites with the J hook, but I found the J hooks, you have a tendency, being you're bringing them up so hard and putting weight on them, you pull the hooks out of them. Where the circle hooks, they generally don't pull. Also, when you're fishing out there, you get a fish and you're coming on and it's a nice day and you get up to about 50 foot of water and the fish is bumping on the way up and fish is bumpy. You get about 50, 75 foot of water. All of a sudden, rod comes up. I lost them. Look behind you. Because when they get that range, they're already blown up. They'll come and float to the top and they'll be back there flipping. Turn around and go get them. A lot of people don't realize that. Oh, I missed them, and they start over again. So that's what you want to do. The hardest part, and I have a couple gentlemen here that have fished with me, is steering the boat south. Everybody wants to go. And when I steer, I'm like talking sideways and I'm going, look at the compass. What you got to do is when that compass starts to turn, we'll say you're at 210 degrees. When that compass starts to go that way, you wouldn't turn back that way. Because the boat will move faster than the compass does. And so most people have a tendency to overturn. They're at 210 degrees, then they're at 150, and then they're at 210 degrees, then they're at 120, and before you know it, you're tied around, got everything tied up in a knot. And then it's just bring it all up and start all over again. So this setup here is the BNX 1500. It's a two motor reel. If you're really going to get into it, you really want to go with this one here, and I'll explain. This reel, like I said, the BNX 1000 is about $600. The 1500 is a 2-motor setup. It has 2 speeds to it, and it's about $1,500. You got another $200 for the rod. You got $150, $200 worth of line. So to get started, that's what you're looking at. You're probably looking at $700, $800, maybe even up to $1,000, depending on what kind of line you like. I use on my deep drop rods, I use 60 to 65 pound braid, and then I use a top shot of about 50 to 100 feet of 80 pound test line is all you need. You got to, it's like anything else. You got to work your drag. It's just like, a lot of people just tighten the drag down and they pull them up and they break them off. And they, geez, I lost these fish. Well, it's not a winch. It's a rod and a reel, so you got to lighten up on them. If he starts pulling hard, back up a little bit. For example, if you see this reel here, I got a piece of tape on this star. When I tighten this star drag up as tight as it'll go, which is about there.
Large fish.
That's 32 pounds of pressure on this reel. And I played with this enough in my garage with a scale. If I turn it back one time, I'm back to 16 pounds of pressure. That's something you got to do on your own to kind of figure out which is which. Okay? Once I usually fish about 25 pound of pressure. Once I get the bite, I automatically back it off on all my reels. Okay? It's a lot of fun. Your deep drop fishing is just like anything else. It's like paint drying. Watch it paint dry until you get a bite, and then all hell breaks loose. Okay? When I'm on the boat, like I said, the couple guys that's been in this club with me, I'm loud. I know I'm loud, and when I get a fish on or we get a fish on, I get louder. And I tell my people all the time, and I've been telling them for 40 years, I'm not yelling at you, I'm yelling for you. And most times I'm yelling over diesel motors or outboards or so on and so forth. And like I said, I get just as excited as if I had the rod and reel in my hand. So I am willing to help anybody set up, like if they want to set up their boat, or what kind of equipment to use, or what I would suggest. I don't charge anything for that. Like I said, I'm retired, but I enjoy teaching. And so anybody that would be interested in doing something like that, I would. If somebody wanted to buy me lunch or something like that, that would be fine. Like I said, I'm not looking to make any money. I enjoy teaching. You know, I found out later in years that when it came to teaching, I really enjoy teaching. And if I knew that when I was younger in high school, I would have paid a little bit more attention. In high school, my 3 favorite subjects was lunch, gym, and girls. So I'm just a dumb fisherman and a carpenter by trade. Okay? If you want to get into a little more, you can buy something like this. This is a regular 80 reel. This happens to be an Avid, but they make Shimano, so on and so forth, and this is what they call the power winch motor. This setup here, if you want, you know, if you're gonna, this is gonna last longer than this. As we go, everyone's gonna last longer. The reel's about $800 brand new. The power winch, there's a place in Georgia, makes these, Georgia or North Carolina, I believe, that makes these. You call them, tell them what kind of reel they want. They'll make this mechanism down here to fit your reel. This is 8 years old, and it's never failed on me yet. And I use this mainly when I'm sword fishing. So, and this has got 80-pound test line on it. Then I run 150 foot of 150-pound test line, and that's where my weight would be attached to, about 10 foot from it. And then also from that leader, from that barrel swivel at the end of that 150, my bait would go there, which is 300-pound test line with my swordfish bait on. I use no snap swivels on this type of fishing. When I'm there, I use a barrel swivel and everything's crimped. Crimp to crimp, both sides. So, then if you really want to get into it, you buy this bad boy. This is an LP, okay? It's the same as that. It's got 80-pound test of line, got 150-pound leader, 150 foot, and then it would be my bait. I also use a rattle on my swordfish. I think any little bit of sound down there helps. When I'm fishing with this, I'm fishing 15, 18, 2,000 feet down. That's a quarter of a mile of line I have out. And it's unbelievable. It really is. But this reel is an LP. If you're really going to get into it, balls to the wall, don't even mess with them two. This will do everything that they will do and then some. Well, you're looking at $6,000 for the reel. You're looking at another $1,200 for the rod, and it holds 8,000 yards of line. So you're so you know, you got to have a pretty good pocket or have a big piggy bank to buy this. But this does everything. This is all power. It's a 2-speed reel. As you see here, I got yellow, and what I have is at different spots where you turn this. This is your drag. This is also your drag. When you put this, for example, to here where there's a little notch, I have 24 pounds of drag. Now, what most people do too, and I think I have a witness here, when I'm fishing this reel myself, let me see, here we can take that. Yeah. I hold my hands down. Hang on. This is also, the reel's 24 pounds without no line on it. But basically, I hold my hand, both hands down here so I can work the buttons. Okay? What most people have a tendency to do, they're so used to using their fishing reel, they want to hold here and they want to hold here. And what happens is when they hold here, when they get excited and you say, hit the button, they go, try to turn this handle. Well, when you turn this handle to there, now I got 46 pounds of drag on it. And usually the line breaks or you lose the fish pulls off. Right, Steve? So I tell everybody to, keep your hands down here where the buttons are. This also has a counter on it, and it tells you how deep your line is. This goes by revolutions. Everybody goes by feet. They say, well, I'm down 2,000 feet. You're really not. It's revolutions, but it's real close. You know, the fuller the spool, you know, the more inches it will take on. At an empty spool, it'll take about 10.5 inches. At a full spool, it'll take almost 16. One revolution. So there's kind of the basics of it. Like I said, so this unit here, rod, reel, and line, you're looking at almost $12,000. $10,000. Let's go 10. 6 and $1,000 and $1,000 for line. So it all depends on. I started with a Band X that was $400. I'm up to 2 of these. And I just got one, and I only had to pay half because my boys bought the other half for me, so that was really nice. But on this drag, like I said, this is a drag. I'm going to own that fan before the night's over. This is a drag, and I have it marked. You know, it's 8, 16, 20, 24, 30, so on and so forth. When this is in the position, I tell my people, if you want to tighten the drag or loosen the drag, turn this knob. If you come up here and feel this, when you turn this, you could feel click. You could actually feel it, click, click, click. Every click is 3 pounds, and it's consistent. You know, these are beasts. This is a 2-speed. This is an S2. Their newer version per se. They had an S where you might see them, a lot of them online, the S's. Personally, if I had never had one of these, and I was going to buy an LP, I wouldn't hesitate to buy almost any reel online, Facebook, whatever. The S's are obsolete, where they don't make them no more, okay? But they said they'll have the parts for them forever. I've actually talked to the guy down in LP. They're a little slower than this one. They're also a 2-speed, but they're just a little slower. And you can buy them brand new, $5,500. You can buy used ones, $4,200, whatever. I would buy, personally, probably almost any one online if you decided you wanted to buy one, because they're that consistent and that good of a motor. The only thing I would suggest is when you get ready to buy one, every one of these has a serial number. Ask whoever you're buying it from, can you give me the serial number? If he says no, you don't want to buy it because it's probably stolen. Okay? If he says yes, gives you the number, you call down Florida here to LP and tell them you got this serial number, you're thinking of buying a reel. They'll look it up. They have every single number since they made these reels. And they'll tell you who owned it, when they bought it, when it's been serviced and everything. And yes, the gentleman gave you the number, go ahead and buy it. But if they say we don't have that guy's name, so on and so forth, it was probably stolen. The problem with them stolen, you go in to take a service, you buy it. You're not worried about it. Something happens to it. You send it in to them to get fixed. They're going to check the serial number. And by law, when they check the serial number, it's not your name on it, they have to call the cops. When they call the cops, they take the reel. So whatever you paid for it, you're out of it. So I would strongly suggest if you're going to buy something like this, check first. This one I did buy used about 7 years ago, and I called. The people are excellent down there. They really are. They said, yeah, this one owned it, he owned that. He had 4 of them, matter of fact. He sold 2. You're the 3rd person. But blah, 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 so on and so forth. So that's what I would say if you're going to buy an LP. But they're like bulletproof. I mean, you take care of them, wash them. Like I said, this is 8 years old. I mean, when I come home, it gets a shower before I do. So, but the bottom fishing out here is pretty good. Unfortunately, the wardens and stuff, they keep cutting the season, and the fish are excellent. I mean, golden tile fish. The biggest one I ever caught was 35 pounds. Last year I had a yellow edge grouper, for example, was in 540 feet. That was 46 pounds. It was 2 pounds short of the state record. And I was just out there fishing. I mean, it was no big deal, you know. Go ahead.
When you run out for tile or group, or what are you looking for? Structure or?
When I'm looking for grouper and say tile fish, like I said, your yellow wedge grouper are a mud fish. They live in the mud just like a tile fish. What I have found, when you're out there and you're looking at your graph, you'll see the bottom and it's red. And all of a sudden you'll see a dip. It looks like somebody took a pencil and went, you know? And then there's nothing. And then you'll see a spot where there's a couple. Looks like somebody took a pencil and just took the red out, or a black magic marker. That's where you want to fish. There are the holes that are in the bottom. That's what I believe. And whenever I find, I go back, make a circle, try to drift over that spot. Over the years, when I drift over them spot where them little lines are, sometimes they're a little greenish color. You'll get bites. So that's what I went to.
You mark fish at that depth, or?
I do. It all depends on how good your transducer is on your boat, you know. Most of the transducers nowadays that are even on the back of the boat will mark 5, 6, 7, 800 feet without a problem. Even the rented boats, you know, they should mark that deep with no problem. I don't know what their limit is, how far you can go with them, you know, but like I said, that's what I look for. I look for them little cut marks in the bottom of that red bottom.
Where are you running?
Excuse me?
Where are you running for? You said they're running south?
I'm sorry?
Are you running south first?
No, I'm running east. You got to go east to go to deep water. Pretty much east, northeast. A good heading would be 110, 115 out our inlet right here. Run out there, you hit 600 feet of water. What I've done over the years out here is I've done it anywhere fish. Even if I'm inshore, I get a bite, boom. First thing I do is push mark. Before I even go get the rod, I push mark. And over the years, fishing out there in the deep water, same way with sword fishing. I have a mark from down by Port St. Lucie, and I think I should have brought a picture. Maybe next time, or come out fishing with me. The marks are here, 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 here. And over the years, I keep working and fishing north. I keep going north. You know, a lot of times I'll run out to my last mark that I got out there. So over the years, I got a pattern where I can go out and set up on this mark, and I know I'm going to drift over 4 or 5 marks. But the first time I started fishing here, I just went out. Everybody says, oh yeah, you got to go out 600 feet of water. So I did. Actually, a friend of mine was supposed to go with me that day. He didn't go. I said, to hell with it, I'm going myself. And it was like this floor, so I run out. 20 miles is about 600 feet of water, depending where you are, area. And, you know, my boat will run 25 knots, so, you know, 45 minutes I was there, and I just started drifting. Like I said, first fish I got a bite, even if I miss them, I put a mark. I can always erase that mark, but it gives you something as in future going down the road. Same way with sword fishing. When I'm out sword fishing, I'm usually fishing 1,1700 feet of water, and I'm fishing different depths. I'm fishing 2 rods. I fish a buoy rod, what they call a buoy rod, and I fish a tip rod. The tip rod is right off the side of the boat, and it's set up more or less. I'm fishing just like I am with the deep drop. Because I fish off the side of the boat, because if I'm fishing by myself or with somebody, I'm right there. I can watch the compass, I can steer, I can watch the GPS, and I can watch the rod. Now, when I'm buoy fishing, there's a second rod you use, wherever that picture is out here somewhere.
Here back.
Oh. I'm fishing one of them behind the boat, and then this rod is fishing. When you're fishing down that deep, this is the boat, this is south. That rod line is down this way with the current. That line looks like it's going straight down. Like I said, I got 1,200, 1,400 feet of line out. 1,400 feet of line is 3/10 of a mile. And I'm going to be honest with you, I did this like 2 years ago. I've been fishing and never given it a thought. Where I live, we have one long road down the golf course by my house. It's just a little chip and putt. And I stopped at the stop sign with my truck, I zeroed out my odometer and I went 3/10 of a mile. Matter of fact, 1,400 foot is 3.3 tenths. And I went 3/10 of a mile and I got out of the truck and went, you gotta be freaking kidding me. You know, it's amazing. You just can't comprehend, and I've been fishing a lot of years, just how far that is. Well, your tip rod, that line is, like I said, it's coming down the boat. It looks like it's going down or back a little, but it's going this way. So 1,400 feet of line, that bait's out in front of me. The tip rod, or the buoy rod, is behind me, okay? You got to do a little different. On deep dropping, you can go south and drop your line, and you can speed up or slow down to get it straight. When you're sword fishing, to set out a buoy rod, what you do is I run north. I get this in the rod holder, and I put my bait on, and I let out my 150 of line, 150 feet of line. And that's when I'm heading north, real slow, 5 knots, 3 knots, okay? I'm letting this line out, and I'm keeping everything straight. When I get to that 150 feet, I put this on. It's on usually about a 4-foot leader, and I use an offshore clip, just a fast clip. So you clip it on, clip it off, okay? And I set that down, and then I keep going. And I go out to what they call a buoy whip. On both of these reels, here. I have 3 of these on this reel and 3 of them on this reel. And what they are is their line, it's a buoy whip. And I'll show you. And I let the line out to, per se, 1,400 feet. And there'll be one of these. Okay, it's got a big loop here, where I would say attached to my main line with a cat's paw or, you know, a uni knot or whatever you want to tie. And then there's mono. This is 250 pound test mono. Then there's a loop in it that I braid in the line. And then there's another 5 or 6 feet of that where this loop would go, okay? Then at 1,600 feet, and I put 200 feet of line in between this, put another one, and then 200 feet of line and another one. So my last one, or my first one, whichever way you want to look at it, coming off the reel, is at 1,400 feet. Then I will take, I didn't bring the buoy. The buoy is like a big bobber. It's a crab buoy. It's this big and round, that big, and I have a piece of 3/4 inch PVC in it with a flag on it. And what I would do is I would hook that clip onto here and throw it overboard. So now I got 1,400 feet of line out behind me. I'm still going north, okay? And I put the buoy on. As soon as I put the buoy on, I slowly make a nice circle back around to 180 degrees. And I just let line come off the reel. And I put that buoy out where it's like, Mark says, you want to go any further? I can hardly see it. Nah, that's pretty good. Okay? So now I'm going north, or I'm going south, I'm sorry. My lines, that float is holding up here. You know, that float's holding up here. All the rest of the line is down with my bait on it. And we're drifting along. I'm bumping the boat in gear, and I'm going south. We're fishing. Most people that fish with a bobber, I imagine everybody here at one time fished with a bobber. You get a bite, bobber goes down. Now, when you're sword fishing, that sticks up and it's sitting there waving around in the water like this. When you get a bite, it falls over. When people first told me this when I started doing it, I was like, no, he's pulling on it. It's got to go down. Because when swordfish hits, most times what they do is they hit and they start up. Not necessarily will they come up to the surface, but they'll come up 100 feet and out. And when they come up and out, they take this weight off the line. So the buoy, his weight is holding that buoy up. The buoy falls over. You know, it's actually opposite. And you can buy these in the store, buoy whips. R.J. Boyle, wonderful guy, great fisherman. He has a great shop, and he really knows how to charge the prices too. Trust me. But I mean, it's all quality stuff. He sells buoy whips. He makes some. There's other shops that make them and sell them, and they're getting $50 and $60 a piece for them. All right, one of these that you're looking at. The only problem is most of their buoy whips are this long, with that loop in the center where my chest is. I make my own. I also weave them so they hold up, which you could look. I make them longer because that buoy that's on that 4 or 5 foot piece of line, I have it on about 400-pound piece of Dacron line, okay, from the clip to the buoy. For the simple reason, when you grab it, the mono has a tendency to slip through your hand when you grab it to get it off, where with the Dacron line it won't. When I'm pulling it in, as I'm fighting the fish, because you realize, you know, that's a football field behind the back of the boat still. That buoy's back there. I got to reel that in and take it off before we can do anything else. That buoy's laying sideways and it's rubbing along this. I'd rather it rub against 200 pounds of line than my 80-pound braid. So I make mine longer. So we can pass that around, and you can see, like I said, this here is where it's weaved in. I do that. That's my own personal thing. But I've done it because most of them, when they make it, it's just the 2 loops of this floss, which is 70-pound floss. So basically, if you double it, you know, you're 140 pounds. But it wears because from that clip on it. I found if I braid it wears a lot longer. You can get 3 or 4 trips before you have to change it. I change this every 3 trips, regardless if I catch a fish or not.
That's just the floss portion, Joe?
Excuse me?
That's just the floss part you're changing out, or the whole whip? Every 3 trips, you said you change it. Is it just the floss part?
No, I change that whole whip.
The whole whip.
Hey, cut it off, throw it away. Cut it off, throw it away. Now, like I said, I make them. Like I said, I'm not a salesman. I'm up here for sale, but if somebody would want one, I get $25 for them. And I ain't making no money. I just enjoy making them. You know, was out in the garage here a couple weeks ago, and I said, geez, I got to make some buoy whips. I only got 2. And I'm sitting and listening to radio, this and that and the other. Before you know it, my wife comes out and says, it's 11:30. You going to bed? I was like, yeah, I'm going to stop. She said, how many did you make? I don't know, 25. You know, so, you know, but they're all weaving, and I have special needles to weave the line up and through the line. That the Dacron is 130 Dacron that's doubled. So, and I honestly could say I've never had one fail. But like I said, I change them every 3 trips too. You know, so that's basically it as far as, like I said, bait. As far as fish, I like pilchers. When I buy the pilchers, when you can't get them, I don't throw them away. I freeze them. And then what I do is when I put them on for bait, I hook them right up through the chin with my big hook, and I cut the tail off. Because you don't cut the tail off, they tend to spin. So if you cut the tail off, they won't spin on you. And like I said, all my yellow edge grouper, which are unbelievable eating grouper, I think they're the best out of all of them. They always hit the fish baits for some reason. I've caught them on the 2nd hook, and I've caught them on the 4th hook. I used to always use 5 hooks on my baits, but I never caught none on the 5th hook. So I'm like, why am I making another swivel and another hook and, you know, putting all that fancy doodad stuff on it, and I ain't catching on it. So I only fish with 4 hooks anymore. We've caught some doubles, snowy groupers and stuff, you know, nothing real big. And they end up killing each other, you know, more or less fighting against each other. They come up pretty much the same way. But, you know, you want to pick your days. But the biggest thing is you want to get that down pat where you're heading south and drifting backwards. So you're constantly, you really want somebody. I have a couple of friends of mine at the marina. I keep my boat over here at Taylor Creek Marina. I have a 25-foot Parker. And they said, we've been out there 4 trips. We ain't caught a thing. So what are you doing? You won't put the lines over and then we drift. Well, trust me, you just drift. I mean, there got to be some guys out here that bottom fish. When you drift, I don't care how much weight you have, to a point that weight will come off the bottom and it'll be, you know, drifting higher. So you either got to slow the boat down or you got to let more line out. I don't want to keep letting line out. I mean, even though I got to just push the button to bring it in, you have a fish on a buoy rod, and you got 1,400 feet of line out, and you have this rod in the water with another 1,400 or 1,500 feet out. If I turn this reel on right now and you watch it come in, you go, oh my God, it's that fast. When you get a fish on and you're trying to get the other reel up, it's like, come on, come on. I gotta turn, I gotta do something. Come on, I'm ready. Cut the damn line, will you? I mean, you know, it can get really nerve-wracking, it really can. So, like I said, I've had a couple people here that were, yes ma'am.
Oh, well, I didn't want to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
but I do have a question. You have your own boat, and you said to the people, come out fishing with me.
Okay,
Boats don't run on thank yous. What would it cost for someone to fish with you for the day?
depending on what you're fishing for. For sword fishing, to be very honest with you, I asked for a donation of $150. Okay? Basically, I'm a retired charter captain. I chartered for 40 years. I put up with the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now I just like to fish. And, you know, and $150 really don't even cover the cost of all the equipment. I supply all equipment, all the bait. You know, I usually ask somebody, what can I bring? Bring me some ice. You know, inshore fishing, I get $80 to $100 to go out, like troll them for the day or something, to help cover for my gas. Like I said, I have a lot invested in maintenance. I do most of the maintenance myself that I can. I have many different hats. I only have one hat that's a professional, and that's licensed captain.
Good to know, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir. Oh.
Where do I
When you
sign
say
up?
inshore fishing, you're meaning for the group or?
Bottom fishing, 80-foot reef, you know, 55-foot beefs, snapper fishing, you know, lane, you know, just your regular bottom fishing, trolling. You know, we go trolling. I troll for mahi, and I'm not a real big sailfish guy. You know, if I catch one, it's cool. If I get one of my friends or something that come down from the north, they want to go sail fishing, we go sail fishing. Sailfish don't do nothing for me. I'd rather catch a 20-pound dolphin, have it jump in the air and going crazy, and when I get them in a boat, I can eat them.
Yeah, that's right.
You know?
Are you sword fishing daytime and nighttime?
No, I only swordfish daytime,
Okay,
sword fishing anymore. I don't do any nighttime. I don't have the people that I would go with during the nighttime to
Yeah.
do that. And it's just so much fun. Like I said, I got a witness there, I got a witness there, I got one there. Where's the other one? He was with me. We had one 90 pounds 2 weeks ago, sword fishing. Go ahead, sir.
What about vertical jigging for like grouper and towel fish and stuff like that? I heard that's pretty fun too.
Vertical jigging for tile fishing stuff, I've done a little bit of it. You gotta have the right conditions and you gotta have the right equipment. If you're gonna jig for tile fish and grouper and stuff, you want a reel with a minimum of a 6-to-1 ratio because you need it to be fast. Okay, you want a jigging rod that's adequate. Yeah, generally they make 4 jigging rods. They make a light, a medium, heavy, and an extra heavy. Your extra heavy will hold up to 400, 500 grams. Your light will hold 20 grams. You know, so there's a difference. And everybody thinks you can buy one jigging rod and you could do it all. You can't. You know, you can, but you're not going to be consistent. You know, all the years that I was fishing, like I said, I fished up there. I've done quite a few seminars. I've done 4 TV shows for Channel 16 WNEP years back on the Great Lakes. And the one show we did, the guy said we were sitting down at a picnic table and stuff, and he said, Joe, he said, what's the big secret of consistently catching fish? And I thought there for a minute, and I said, there is none. He said, what do you mean there is none? I said, there is no big secret. It's all the little ones. For example, you guys are out here trolling. I've been on a couple boats already. You got nice trolling rods. You got nice reels. You got good line. And we'll say you're using 30 or 40 pound line, and you got a 200-pound swivel to hook your lure to. It's like, really? Drop it down to a 50-pound swivel. You only got 40-pound test line. it'll travel through the water, it'll track better, your lure will track better. You know, you gotta downsize a little. I mean, I'm not talking ultralight fishing here. But I mean, a lot of guys, I go on their boats and they got a minimum of 150 pound ball bearing swivel, a good swivel. I mean, it's a $5 swivel, you know, but you don't need that. You don't need that big swivel. You know, most of the guys that sailfish and kite fish around here, they're using 20-pound test line. You ask them, they'll tell you, they're using little tiny swivels. You know, they're using a barrel swivel where their line meets their leader. You know, it's 30 pounds. They can wind it right up through the guides and stuff, you know? And they're catching sailfish and they're good at it. I wish I was that good at it. That's why I fish for dolphin. They're easier. Yes, sir.
I think you missed the question I asked you. What are you using for bait when you're sword fishing? Daytime.
Okay, daytime sword fishing. Swordfish are pretty much an opportunist fish. They're like a striper that I used to fish up north. You put it in front of them, they're going to eat it. Most common down here are now they're getting real big into what they call their squid tentacles. They're an actual tentacle from the big squid they catch out on the west coast. And they got the little suckers on them and everything. They look like an eel. Most of your baits for sword fishing want to look like an eel. They use that. They use bonita strips. Okay? They use
Mahi belly.
mahi bellies. They make them and they streamline them and they rig them so they're long and narrow with a skirt over top of it. Mostly down here, a lot of guys say dark colors. I caught them on glow and I caught them on dark colors. Mahi bellies, like I said, what I use, I have done real well on ribbon fish. And this is the time of the year when I start ribbon fishing. You could catch them around here, all over around here. Matter of fact, I went last night just to see if there was any around. I caught 8. I didn't keep any. I gave them to the other animals that were eating them. So, you know, it is what it is. You know, you laugh. Everybody says they're good, they're good, they're good. You know what? I'll try anything once. I got a nice one last year. Fillet them? Oh, he can fillet them. They're just throw them over. I cut them up in chunks. I got a recipe from a guy where you took it, you laid it out, and you put there some kind of rice sauce and stuff. I went to the Oriental store and bought it. And then you roll them up and put a toothpick through them and stand them on edge and broil them in the oven. I didn't care for them. So I took another one, to be honest with you, cut it up in chunks. My wife breaded it in egg, put egg, and then breaded it in a light flour, and we just deep fried it. Tastes just like flounder. It's a real white meat. It's not bloody. It's not, you know, I wouldn't say I'm going to eat it every day, and I'm not saying I will say that, you know, I would eat it again. It really isn't bad at all. It's just like eating flounder. And flounder's like, you know, you put ketchup on it, tastes like ketchup. Put mustard on it, tastes like mustard. You know, you put mayonnaise on it, tastes like mayonnaise. So, you know, I mean, but I use the ribbon fish, as your question. I catch them around here. They're a lot of fun to catch on about a 7-foot rod, 1/4 ounce jig, and use a glow stick about 20 inches from your jig. Fish at night and just cast out and reel it in. You're going to catch 3 to every 10 you catch, because they have a pointed mouth. And I've watched them under the lights. They'll come up and they'll hit a pilcher, and I'm a carpenter, and I couldn't measure that good. They had 2 teeth in the front that are real pointy. They'll catch that fish just like that, and then they'll swim away with it, and then they'll eat it. But everyone I've ever seen to catch a bait under the light, he's got that fish halfway, right there. So it's so narrow there, it's hard to hook them, you know what I'm saying? But they're fun to catch. And I've done real well with ribbon fish. Most of my fish this year have been on ribbon fish. Also, ladyfish is a real good bait. You know, you rig a ladyfish. I didn't bring any rigs with me because I didn't know how in detail people want to get into sword fishing, because I have rigs made up and stuff, because I pre-rig them. I shrink wrap them, and then when I go out, I take 4 or 5 baits with me. Like I said, I take it out of the package. It's rigged on 300-pound test. Put my loop in, put my crimp on, and off we go. Yes, sir.
You're fishing on the bottom for swords?
No, Jason, basically, if you, like, this reel does not have a counter.
Right.
So it's a guesstimation. what I did is I got a little ingenious, the shaft that goes across there, I played with it where I got a little Maggie mark on there. And every revolution it'll bring up 6 feet. Okay? So when you swordfish, if you're gonna swordfish, what you're gonna do, and you don't have a counter reel, or you don't have a buoy whip on, so you know where you're at, you wanna drop it to the bottom, let it hit the bottom. Then you wanna bring it up roughly 150 to 200 feet. Anywhere from 100 to 200 feet. So you're off the bottom. What you're doing when you're sword fishing, like I said, the current's running 3 knots that way. I'm going this way, and I found 1.5, 1.2, 1.7, up to 2. I watch my GPS, and I go by knots. I don't go by miles per hour. I'm doing 1.7, 1.5. That's what I'm doing basically. Like I said, the current's running 3 knots. I'm going against it, so I'm actually slow trolling, and that bait's doing this, down there in 150 feet off the bottom or so, and so you're really trolling, but it's real slow trolling.
What size hooks are you using?
Hooks 10-0, smallest 10-0. I make a rig that nobody else uses around here. A lot of guys use a hook in the rig where it's down into the fish, and then the skirt goes over and it looks pretty. I've been fishing with circle hooks, and I rig my bait through my squid, and I'm using a floss to rig them, and I take a 16 to 18-0 circle hook, and I literally tie that floss to that rig, so I only got 1 hook. I have found on the circle hooks, when you get a bite, 9 out of 10 times, you're going to catch that fish. With the J hooks, a lot of times, that's why they say you want to watch the rod. When you're watching the rod and that rod goes like this, you want to drop it. A lot of guys say it'll drop at 50, 60 feet because this way the sinker goes down and it'll help hook them. But what a lot of people don't realize, probably 70% of the fish that they catch, especially down below, are foul hooked. Because think about it. My line's going down on the buoy, we'll say. It doesn't matter either rod, but my line's going down. I'm drifting north at 1.5. That 1,800 feet of line is that way, or 1,400 feet of line is that way. Now, any fish, inshore, offshore, when they're swimming against the current, which way are they facing?
Into the current.
Into the current. So they're facing the same way my boat is. So when they come in, also with the swordfish, I'm running them lights. I run one 20 foot off the bait, and I run another one 20 foot, and another one 20 foot, and I put an extra one on my weight. So 100 feet away, there's another light. Like I said, no lights, no bites. And I use blue and white, makes you come tight.
And they get foul hooked with the circle hooks?
Yeah, and I'm using the circle hook on a single hook. But think about it, the line's coming down and it's going this way. I'm facing this way and the swordfish is swimming this way.
Right.
The swordfish does what it is, that's what it is. When he comes in and sees the bait, he's doing this. He's slashing at them lights and he keep right on going to the bait. He slashes the bait will tumble, he'll turn around and he'll eat it. Okay? Then the fun begins. So,
Get a solid bite.
huh?
Get a solid bite at that depth.
Well, like I said, the rod is just, that's your bite at that depth. I mean, that's why I say, if you're not watching the rod tip, the buoys are cheap because you can watch the buoy. When it falls over, you know you had a bite. But when you're fishing with the tip rod, like I said, that rod's out there and you know, it'll be going, it'll get a rhythm, even though it's off 100 feet, it'll get a rhythm. And then maybe it'll, and stay up for a second. And then go down, wait a minute now, I didn't break the line. And then it'll go down, well that was, most likely it was a bite or it was a slash. And that's why a lot of swordfish nowadays, daytime swordfishing, they're getting foul hooked. Mark was with us, we had a fish on for 45 minutes. We finally got him up to what, 100 feet, 200 feet? We lost him, he came off. There was not a thing wrong with the bait. It was never touched. When I got home, I started feeling the leader up high. Right? It was all chafed up high. We had the fish bill round. When that fish come in and started slashing at that bait with that 150 foot of line, he got tangled up into that line. We had him tangled around the bill. He never got to the bait. You know, and that's what happens a lot on these fish. 90% of the fish, when you get a swordfish on, when you lose him trying to take the weight off, you'll lose him because he'll make a surge or he'll run in, and after an hour and a half of fighting this fish, he's ripped a big gap and hole wherever that hook might be. So you give him a little bit of slack. I mean, how many times you caught a fish bringing him up on the beach, you lay him on the beach, and the hook falls out? Same thing with the swordfish. You say, oh, I lost him. Most fish that I strongly believe, if you miss a fish after fighting them an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours, and you lose them right up on the top surface, it's because he was foul hooked. The hook was never in his mouth. I started using circle hooks, and where I read this, I'm good, but I'm not that good. Okay? That's how they're fishing over in New Zealand. They're all using circle hooks over there for swordfishing. They're catching big swordfish over there. And they all use one hook, circle hook, and it's above the bait. You know, so I said, hey, what do I got to lose? Put one rod that way, one rod the other way. We went out the other day when we caught that 90-pounder. We had 3 bites that day. 2 of them were on a J hook, and we missed them. And the 3rd bite was on the ladyfish. That was a circle hook. We brought him home. So it's just, you know, it's a learning, it's constantly, even for me, it's a learning experience, you know. It's cool. Yes, sir.
You were saying when you were bottom fishing, you're going up current until your line's about 45 degrees, then you're drifting back until your line's about 45 degrees, and then you crank it up.
Well, that way it gives you a little bit of on the bottom, you know. I mean, I'm not going fast up. You know, most of the times I just got one motor in gear. I got a 25 Parker with twin 150s. I'm using one motor. I'm doing 600 RPMs.
But if you're going from 45 to 45, is your bait even moving across the bottom?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Because you're still drifting. The current's running 3 knots. I'm still drifting back this way no matter what. I'm still drifting back this way at 1.5. So I'm moving 1.5 miles an hour backwards.
Yeah.
Okay? You know, I mean, it's until you actually see it done, it's like, this don't make no sense. It just, you know, it really is. It's, you know. So, and what, you got a question?
He has a question.
Yes, sir.
So, if, like, do you know the rod that you're holding right now in your hands?
What was that?
Do you see the gray rod, like the gray reel rod?
LP.
LP?
Like, how do you know that, like, there's a serial number in there? Like, where
He wants to
is-
know where the serial number is.
It's on the back.
He's plugged into the.
Right here.
FBI.
You gonna come see it? You gonna call the cops on me or what?
You gotta check it. He's calling. You want my camera?
Go verify that serial number.
See that number right there? That's the serial number. And honest, I bought this. I checked it out. I didn't steal it.
So then after you bought that, or anyone that would do that, then did you call the company back and send in a receipt?
Yeah, what I did when I bought the shoes off a gentleman, and what I did is I asked for the serial number. He was more than willing. Here's the number. Call. He said, call him. You got his number? I mean, the guy was, you know, up front. I called him. He said, yes. He bought the reel 2 years ago. It's been serviced every year. He says, I don't think the guy ever used it. He said, buy it. So I bought it. After I bought it, he's called me back. So a couple days later, after I got it and got it home and stuff, I called LP up. What's it, Linger and Pittman? How do you say it? Linger and Pittman. I called him up. I said, my name's Joe Pritchard. I bought this reel, this rod number, gave him the serial number. He said, no problem. We'll change the name, change the address, and it's registered.
Then
So,
they're registered.
so it's registered, you know. And then I just purchased one, like I said, not too long ago. I've been using this rod and this rod, and I've caught fish on both, and this is the Cadillac. Like I said, it has the line counter on it. Here I'm guessing. That's the thing with this, you know. Like I said, you drop it down to the bottom, I got it marked, so if that goes 10 revolutions, I know I brought it up 60 feet. So I go 20 and I'm up 120 feet, you know? And I say, okay. And then you're having a sandwich, you're talking, you haven't got a bite in an hour, this and that and the other, and maybe you drop it down or bring it up another 4 turns, and then it's like, where the hell am I? You know, so you slow down the boat and you gotta drop it all the way to the bottom again
Right.
and reset.
So your smallest outfit up here, your smallest one, you're fishing what kind of fish with that?
This smallest one, I'm fishing tile fish,
Okay.
grouper, and this has a line counter on it also.
Yeah.
All your smaller reels have line counters, and they're usually by feet, so you don't
Okay.
have a problem. But a lot of people don't realize, like I said, with the current out there, you get out there in 500 feet of water, to hit bottom and stay on the bottom, you gotta let out maybe 700 feet of water. Because you know, and the easiest way to do that when you're even deep drop, because where you're going to deep drop, it's all mud out there. It's 90% mud. You're going to deep drop and you're going to drop it. When that 10-pound or that 4-pound weight hits, it's, you know, you ever walk in a swamp and you sink right down to nothing? Well, that's what that sinker does. And then when you lock it up, the rod will go,
Yeah.
and it's like, something's gonna break. You know, and then the rod goes like this. I just came off the bottom, you know, and so, like I said, and you get a nice day, and you really got to watch the rod tip when you're deep driving. Because, like I said, the rods will get a rhythm, but you want to make sure you're hitting the bottom with that sinker. You know, you're 3-4 feet above the bottom, you won't get any bites.
Right.
These fish aren't going to come up 5-10 feet for a bait, 99% of the time.
So when you're bottom fishing, but just for the smaller stuff, you know, you're at 100 feet or whatever. Are you?
I'm not using these. I'm using just regular.
Yeah, but you're working around wrecks.
Yeah, you don't want to go right over them because you hang up,
Right.
you know, cost you, you know, you want to stay to the sides and stuff. But for your golden tile and your yellow wedge grouper, your Warsaw grouper, when you're in that 4, 5, 6, 7, 800, 99% of that all out here is nothing but mud.
Yeah,
There's a little piece of structure here and there, and I have lost a rig or two, and it's like, where'd that come from? You know, I didn't mark it on the screen, but you know, there is some structure, but mostly it's all mud out here.
Yeah.
So you really don't lose a lot of equipment unless you, like I said, that's another thing too. You want to fish straight up and down vertical. Because you start fishing like this way out, now you're dragging. You got a better chance of hanging something up down there.
Absolutely.
And breaking it off.
Yep.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
I want to know what you do with the sword after you're clean the fish.
You want some?
No.
Boy, I shut her up, didn't I? No, you can't, them days are gone. You can't sell a sword. You can't sell a bluefish legally. They all got to go through. You got to have your permits, so on and so forth. Actually, I actually did. My goal, my bucket list is to catch a 500-pound sword. The biggest one I ever caught was 250. Okay? My bucket list is 5+. And I got thinking about it about 6 months ago, and I went up here on the other side to the commercial boats here, and I went in and talked to them, and I said, look it, I says, I'm just a weekend warrior, fisherman, and blah, 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 and my thing is sword fishing. If I get a 500-pound swordfish, you know, I like swordfish. It's, fresh swordfish is amazing. It just, and I said, I don't want to waste it. I even went to a couple restaurants. I said, I don't want to waste it. Can I give it to you? They said, you could give it to us, but we can't sell it. Unless we got paperwork on it, you know, they could shut us down. The guy up here at the fisheries up here said, he said, you know, you got to get the permits to sell it. He said, I won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. He said, they're watching me constantly. He says, and they're just itching to shut me and everybody else down for something like that. I said, well, you know, I said, my big concern is I don't want to waste it, you know? And he said, well, I suggest you get a bigger friend base list. That's just what he told me. You know, I have swordfish at home. I do have a good commercial type sealer, and I freeze pack almost everything. The only thing I freeze is swordfish, yellow edge grouper, tilefish. Everything else that I catch often and stuff is fresh. We eat it fresh, myself and my wife. And if I have some extra, my neighbors love me. I can do anything to them. They don't care, you know. He fishes 3 times a week. You know, he wants to come over and watch TV, let him come over. You know, I mean, so, you know, it's really good. But they're the only 3 fish that I feast for the same reason. You don't catch them every day. Also, they freeze very well. I could give you a piece of swordfish that I caught 2 weeks ago. Chip was with me, and it's freeze. And
Do you keep the sword, or do you toss
the
it?
sword I
Cut the
keep,
bill.
I cut the bill off, and I cut the tail off. Okay, and then I stake the rest. Okay, and what I do with the sword is I take them and I dry them out and cure them, and it takes usually about 3 months. I put them in a cage and put them in the water down by the bay here, and just let them eat, and they'll get down to bone. The tail, what I do is I spread out on the board and pin it, and then I put it in a box and I put borax over it and let it dry, and it takes about 8 or 9 months. And then what I do is it's all dried out, I take it and I spray it black, and then I buy the decoupage type stuff you mix that's clear, and I put just a trace of sprinkles in it, like silver or gold, and then I paint that over it. And then I'm a carpenter, so I usually make some kind of plaque, either a heart shape or some kind of design, router the edge real nice and stain it, and then I put that on the board, fill it, where it's all dried underneath, I put epoxy in there, or actually I use Bondo, and fill that, and then I set it on the board, get it nice and level, and it makes a real good conversation piece. When I get mine done, I got one drying now, should be getting close. When I get it done, I will bring it in and show you what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Does moon phase make any difference to you on the tiles?
I'm really hard of hearing, you gotta speak out.
Does moon phase make any difference to you on the tile on the grouper fishing?
Moon phase.
The
Phase of the
moon
moon make any
phase.
difference?
You know, yeah, I go by the moon. I do go by the moon. I'm not 100%. I rather fish a rising moon than a falling, to be honest with you. And if you go online, there's a couple websites where you could go on and it'll tell you when it rises and when it falls, and when it's at peak and when it falls. I do watch that. I found that most of my fish that I caught have been on the rising moon that first 2 or 3 hours before it comes all the way up. And that might be 10 o'clock in the morning too, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know if he's ever watched the moon phase.
Yeah.
I do have some belief in that, but you know, out here with my size boat, when it's good to go, I go. You know, regardless of what the moon is, you know what I'm saying?
One more, is there a tide that's too fast?
Excuse me?
Is there a tide that's too fast?
No, you just put more lead on it. I mean, I have 12-pound weights. You know, the biggest thing that keeps me off from going to the deep, I'm to the point, like I said, I'm 69 years old. I don't know how much longer I'm going to do this, but until I can't walk no more, most likely. But if it's nice, I'm going to the deep. That's what I call it. These guys that fish with me know. I call them up and say, look, I'm going to the deep Wednesday. You interested? You know, and it's yes or no, no problem. Regardless of the moon phase, if I could get out there, I'm going. You know, I enjoy it that much. You know. Also, another good tip. My son lives in Boston. My oldest lives in Boston. He giant tuna fishes. He's a lot like me. If he's not in the water, he's on it. My youngest is a golfer, so he don't count. And he's in Texas, but he's 35 and he's making well over 6 digits. So I got to be nice to him because I told him I brought you up all these years. When I get older, I want you to take care of me like I took care of you. You know, so keep making that money. You know, but my son knows a gentleman up there that was a commercial fisherman for about 25 years, and about 4 years ago, my son was talking to him, and he fishes with him occasionally. And he was telling him that I swordfish down here, and he says, where's your dad catching his fish? And he said, what do you mean? He said, you tell your dad that I don't care if you're fishing 1,500 feet of water, 2,000 feet of water, 2,500 feet of water. He says, over the 25 years of fishing, I've kept logs. 90% of my swordfish come roughly around 1,200 feet down.
Wow.
He said, now, we've caught them at 1,800 feet and 2,000 feet of water, and we've caught them at 1,000 feet and 1,000, you know, and 1,200 feet of water. But on average, most of my swordfish come roughly 1,200 feet down. That's why I said with these buoy whips that I have on, I have them set at 14, 16, and 18. Very rarely do what I use them for is the current. If the current's real strong, if the current's 3 miles or less, I use the 1,400 foot mark, because I got figured by the time I come down 1,400 feet of line and it swings out, I'm fishing 12, 1250, 1,300 feet of water. And that's where most of our bites come, believe it or not. If current's running 4 or 5 knots, I use the 1,600 foot of line because I got more drawback. You follow me? And that's like I said, that's all the little things that you pick up as you go along.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Joe, that was great. Really
Thank you.
good.
Good job, Joe.
Thank you.